Welcome in, adventurers, ne'er-do-wells, dice goblins, dungeon masters, everyone alike to another episode of the Cloaks and Capes Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Landis, and with me as always, we have Callie Scales and our guest for today of TikTok fame, Scarlett, one of the big three on my For You page, by the way.
What?
Yeah, I think the three people that I see most often come across my For You page is you, Diana of the Rose, the Buff DM, and honorable mention for, oh gosh, well, this is super, it's my ADHD, it's because my brain is dumb that I'm not remembering it. Zach the Bold. I knew the Bold part, and I'm like, Brian the Bold? That's not right. Is there alliteration? Zach the Bold is another one. His skits are great. But.
So that means with Scarlett, we're now 3 of 3 on your For You page, right?
We are.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find more creators now to bring on as guests, so we can just keep bringing those three on over and over and over again. But Scarlett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was very nice of you to say. I don't make as many TikToks these days.
I noticed that like and I think I apologize on a few of your videos too, because like I'll comment on a few in a row and then notice like, oh, I've been commenting on videos from 2 months ago. This probably looks weird.
Not at all. I have some videos that I didn't expect to pop off because they're just junk videos that like months and months and months later, I'm still getting comments and I'm like, huh, okay.
It always is the things you put the least effort into, isn't it? Infuriatingly so.
Yeah, it's always the rage bait too. And then you're like, oh, now I have to see these angry comments forever.
Well, speaking of emotions, rage, angry comments, the way they make you feel, it kind of plays. I'm so good at
well,
this.
That was amazing. It's like you've been doing this for a while.
Occasionally, I do all right. But today's topic is something that I think the reason that we want to talk about this specifically when Callie had brought it up is we've been dealing with this coming to the end of where our campaign is. But it is a topic called bleed. Now, some people might not necessarily know what that is, because while I've been familiar with the concept or the act of it for a long time, I actually only just heard of it referred to this way within the past year or so. But bleed is basically when you feel those, emotions from the game, even after the game is over. So, just anything carrying over from the game, from the role play into real life. How do you deal with that? What should you do with that? Is it bad if a game makes you feel that way? And I think to start with, where I'd like to go is talking about our own experiences with bleed. Is it something that you've always had in a campaign? Does it get bad or worse at any particular time? Callie, I think that you probably feel this more strongly than anybody else I know, given how much of yourself you put into your characters and how often you write, fictions and stuff about them. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with bleed.
Yeah, I mean, to be blunt about it, I definitely put a lot of myself into my characters, and I definitely feel a lot of their emotions when I play. I think it's a really fascinating thing to talk about because there was a great study that was done that showed that our brains are very, very bad at differentiating like real experiences from role-played ones, which is why role-play can be such a powerful therapeutic tool. It's why they use it for treating things like post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff like that. Because, our brains are not great at differentiating those two things.
Stupid brains. Yeah. Stupid brains. Again, stupid brains.
Look, we've got a little ball of mush in our head that has to experience our entire life for us, and it does its best, but it's not always very good at it. And we see that a lot in D&D, especially when there are powerful moments where characters that we've become attached to and have put a piece of ourselves into, when they're going through it, we're kind of going through it. And it can be really hard to deal with. I mean, obviously, we're dealing with that right now with Second Chances, a campaign we've been running for 3 years and is now coming up on its first big, extended break. And I'm having a hard time with Rosalind as of late, partially because I'm trying to get ready to say goodbye to her for a while. And also just because we've been playing her for 3 years now. She is part of my life. She's part of my existence. I've written, I think, 50-some fictions of her life outside of the game.
I think she's also your longest character because
By
prior to this,
far.
you've never done long-term campaigns.
Not 3 years
before,
long, no.
Yeah. What about you, Scarlett? What kind of do you feel like bleed is something that you have to contend with a lot?
Okay, so I have to navigate this carefully because this actually just happened.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I want to be very respectful to anybody who might be aware of this situation. But bleed did take over in a campaign that I was a player in, and I rarely get to be a player. It was a year-long campaign, and it ended up ending the campaigin.
Oh,
and it was really devastating.
Was this sort of like a how
I know, I'm like, how do I talk about this without being
yes, obviously we definitely want to be very, very, very respectful here. And I think this just goes to show you that like bleed can be more than just something that affects you as a player as well. Do you feel like this was something that maybe if it would have been caught earlier on, like was it a long thing that kind of played out, or just
from my perspective, I'm really good at compartmentalizing D&D from real life. So drama was happening in the game. My character's furious. I'm having a great time. I found out that some of my fellow players were not separating very well. And it kind of blew up in our faces, and it was really devastating. I was very confused. I was like, I thought we were just playing games, guys. But no, it kind of got to the point where our characters were being treated unfairly by an NPC.
I can't imagine what that's like.
And I treat you so well.
The NPC was totally in the wrong. But they were also...
I can't imagine what that's like.
I think that some of the players who were arguing with this NPC, who was a Fae, by the way, and our GM played the Fae perfectly. Like, I was like, holy shit, this is so good. But I think that some of the players forgot that they were arguing with an NPC and started just arguing with the logic of the DM, who was remaining in character. And it was frustrating the players to the point where they just couldn't. They felt like it was such an injustice, and it kind of spiraled and everyone crashed out, and then the game got canceled.
Hey, was this game the Second Chances out of curiosity? This sounds familiar.
Hey now. So first of all, I think that maybe one of the things that leads into bleed, and I'm in a similar boat to you, Scarlett. When I'm a character, I don't think I feel that bleed because I'm able to compartmentalize it. It might be because I did was an actor, went to school for it for so long that even though I do attach those feelings, to real feelings, I'm still able to separate it pretty decently. Where I feel bleed in I think it's similar, but it's also different. I feel bleed as a GM when I see my players experiencing that bleed. Where it was particularly rough was in the early days. We had a session where I had kind of planned it out to sort of end in like a Negan Walking Dead kind of situation where he does something to one of the players to teach the rest of them a lesson. So they got hit by a really bad ambush, and one of the characters died, but they were able to bring them back. But it was such a rough defeat because they were right on the cusp of like, if we can just get some lucky rolls, like we can win this. We can win this, and not surrendering earlier caused that death. And even though they were able to bring them back, you could just tell that the players didn't feel like you didn't win, but like it was a really rough loss.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to recover from it. And obviously now we look back and it was a very important part of the campaign. But like at the time, I definitely had some nights of like seeing how unhappy everyone was.
That makes me feel so bad.
Was I a bad DM for putting them through that? Should I have just given them the win? So that's kind of where I sort of see this bleed. And I think that people probably experience a lot of that when you are the type of player that really sees yourself as the character and not just a person playing that character. What are your thoughts, Scarlett, on, because I remember seeing, I think it was a thread or a tweet or something, but someone kind of talking about having this realization of like, you know, I'm the writer for my character, and sometimes you have to like experience failures or you have to experience loss. Because I know a lot of players, if the dice rolls badly, they get very upset. Like they look at it as losing and winning.
As a DM, when I see that on a player, it makes me feel so bad. I'm like frustrated that they can't be like grown up about it, but I also feel really bad. Like, I don't want you to lose, guys. I want you to do well. And then I get insecure. I'm like, they're going to quit my game if they don't roll well. But it's funny because as a player, I am totally fine with failing. I think it adds for interesting stories. But I think that's also because I'm usually the DM. So I am saturated in that perspective. So I'm just happy when I get to be a player.
Well, you're also empathetic to the DM where you're like, I've been the DM where they just are hitting roll after roll after roll after roll, and nothing I throw at them is making a difference. So then you kind of have the moment of like, hey DM, I failed that wisdom save that you gave me. Does something cool happen?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell a cool moment?
Yeah.
I absolutely know that feeling. I think there's for me at least, you two are apparently very good at when your player's compartmentalizing it, and I'm the opposite. If I'm not living as my character and feeling like my character in the moment, I can't play them. I really, really struggle when I have to separate myself out I'll spend the whole day getting into my character's mindset and getting ready to go and play that night because what is it? Is it method acting where you, sorry, I did not go to acting school. That's the only way I can do it is if I'm living as the character. So that definitely lends itself to bleed. And to your point about when you're the DM, you don't want your players to just feel bad all the time. You want them to be having fun, even in moments of folly or failure, which is part of the hero's journey takes you through hell. You do have to fail sometimes before you can become the hero. And I think the trick to it is kind of learning like, okay, when does my party need a win versus when can my party stomach a loss? And learning to recognize that moment can really, really help, I think, as a DM.
I was going to ask you, Callie, for if you have any tips or advice for separating emotions, but apparently you can't do that.
I'm the worst at it. And I mean, Robbie, you've DM'd for me now for a number of characters, and you've definitely seen it. You made me cry on stream when I was playing as Evelyn.
In a good way. In a good way.
In a good way.
In the narrative.
It was a touching moment that actually made me start crying.
Thank you.
Rosalind, you've seen it multiple times where I am very much reflecting the mood of her, whether she's talking or not. And
that's super, super difficult. And I always have to tell myself when we're actually playing, like, I know Callie looks upset, but that's because
it's because Rosalind is upset. That's the face that Rosalind is giving right now.
Is probably having fun. But it's so hard for me even to recognize this as a player, because when you're so attached to your emotions like that, I feel like it can sometimes keep you from making decisions that might be better for the story, right? One of the things that I always mention is like, when it comes to combat, the challenge comes from like challenge rating, right? Stronger monsters, harder combat. When it comes to role playing, it's really easy for players to just go to like the first thing that they feel, it's what my character would do, right? But the challenge to role playing is to sometimes make decisions that at first it might seem like your character wouldn't do, but the challenge is finding the thread of why it might make sense. My favorite example is, you have a paladin who's like, oh, my whole family was killed by goblins, so I kill all goblins on sight. And then the goblin rogue joins the party. Oh, well, he's a goblin and my character has to kill him because that's what my character would do. Super easy, problematic for the group. But to instead maybe take a moment and think like, okay, why doesn't anybody else want to kill this goblin? Why does this goblin have a symbol of Bahamut around their neck? Maybe it's different. Every human isn't evil, even though some humans kill entire families. Maybe this goblin is different and I should give them a try, right? But sometimes when you're, and obviously that's a very, very simple, straightforward thing.
You can't just genocide the goblins because goblins killed your family. That's not okay.
Yes, but the point is that when you're really in your emotions, sometimes you just get really attached to that first idea, and it can be difficult to separate yourself for a minute and be like, why might my character think a different way? And I think that's where we run into some of those problems where, like, once you kind of start arguing with the DM and you kind of start to realize, like, am I arguing with the DM or am I arguing with the NPC? Am I arguing as my character or as myself? So I think in regards to navigating areas like this, and especially if you are someone who has trouble separating your emotions, and this, I'm going to sound like a broken record if you've, for people who listen to our stuff, communication is so important.
Definitely. So I'm kind of sensitive, and I hate people who fight. I hate fighting. So when my players get into it, they know this about me. So we have a Discord server, and they will literally be in the Discord server planning their arguments to do because we don't like to just spring a fight on someone. They have to be like, hey, my character is going to be upset about this thing that your character did. So do you want to, like, hash it out? And then they'll be like, it's okay, Scarlett. We're all still friends. This is all just acting. You're good. You're doing a great job, Mama. And I'm like, okay, but it sounded really real, guys.
Well, obviously that's where, stuff like X cards and whatnot come into play. So if you're ever in a moment where, if you are in an argument with someone and you feel like it might be
a little person,
exactly. Definitely don't be afraid to speak up and be like, hey, can we take a break for a second? Or if you're using like a Discord or something or a Roll20, write in the chat, this is we're all good. This is cool. We're doing fine. Like everything's all right. And even after the fact, once the scene kind of wraps up, take a moment to be like, hey, let's all take a walk.
Aftercare.
Let's make sure we're all good. Everything's fine. Speaking of like your campaign, where you said it kind of seemed sudden to you, but apparently for them, it might have been something that was mounting. That's something that they should have went at least to the DM if they felt like there was something there or something's building, animosity or resentment. You got to get out ahead of that. One of the things that I feel like I see or that I'm asked about a lot is, what should I do if my DM is showing favoritism, right? Because here's the thing. Obviously, DMs can do that 100%. I've seen it happen before. I've heard it happen before. But then I've also had talks with people where someone's like, they're doing favoritism. This person's getting so much backstory. And it's like, when was the last time you talked to your DM about your backstory? Well, I don't. If you're not talking to your DM and giving them stuff, and that person that's getting the spotlight all the time is...
Yeah, absolutely. I've dealt with that before as the DM, where I wanted everyone to prepare a thing and one player didn't prepare anything, but everyone else was DMing me and working through it. And so when that player was starting to be like, well, I don't have a thing, and I'm like, 2 weeks ago,
didn't do the homework.
You had an assignment and you didn't do it. So I'm sorry. I can't do it for you. So yeah, I try not to show favoritism, but I do take the work that if a player has backstory and they have beats they want to hit and they want to adjust the trajectory of their arc and they're messaging me, then obviously I'm going to be doing that. And if someone's not messaging me at all, it's like I try to put little things in their way regardless, but it's probably not going to be as fleshed out as somebody who's like talking to me throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely. If you reach out to me each week and you want to talk to me about what your character's up to and what they are thinking and what they want to face, you can bet that I'm going to, you're doing some of my work for me at that point. I'm going to build those moments in going forward. And if you don't reach out to me, I'm still going to look for little things that I think might be interesting for you and things that I can try and hook you with. But yeah, you're not probably going to get the exact same attention as the person who is working with me every week to help. It's collaborative storytelling. Yeah. If I have to do all the lifting, you're not going to get as much out of it as the person who helps me do the lifting.
Yeah. And I feel like you should at least be, this isn't, DMs asking to be like, hey, tell me what you want to do. Because not everybody knows, but at least talk to your DM and let them know, what is your character feeling after that last session? Because even that's sometimes enough to give some directions. So bleed sounds bad. You know, the way that we talk about it, the issues that we've just talked about, it sounds like it's a scary thing. Do you think that if you're experiencing bleed, do you feel like that means that this makes a game bad? Like if someone out there is like suddenly listening to this, like, oh man, I have that. I have bleed. Does that mean like, is something wrong? Should I do something here?
I think
No.
that it's more indicative of the players rather than the game itself or the DM. And I just think it just means, I don't think you need to change anything in the game. I think it means you just need to communicate better with each other to step out of that. Because any game can experience bleed if you have method actor players.
I mean, even, you know, I know I've mentioned this on previous episodes before when Callie brings up that idea of like the study that our brains, you know, are difficult. Like even professional actors, how often do you see actors who are in a movie and then suddenly they're a couple after that movie because they were love interests in that movie? So it has nothing to do, I don't think with having it be a bad game or even bad players or bad DMs or whatnot. I think what's most important is learning how to handle and process that. If you're just now realizing that this is a thing, and maybe before you're like, you thought that this is just a thing you do, right? A lot of people experience it. And now that you know that it is a thing, now's the time to start talking to your DM, to your fellow players, finding ways to implement it, to counteract it, or to just sort of just know that it's going to be there and how to deal with it.
Well, and we need to remember, too, that bleed doesn't necessarily have to be bad emotions. How many times do you come out of a great session and you're still vibing the next day? That is
Can't
bleed.
sleep for 6 hours. Yeah,
that's bleed going the other direction. So it can be a good thing. And I always take the opinion of when you've stopped bleeding, when you don't have any...
sounds like we're talking
feelings
about periods now.
I know, it kind of does, right?
We're free bleeding here.
When you've gotten to the point that you're coming out of session and you're not feeling anything anymore, you've checked out. You don't care anymore. And that, to me, is far more dangerous to your longevity in the game than bleed.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, usually when I come out of a campaign, even if it's a bad session, like, you know, bad things happen to the characters, right? Someone who's experiencing bleed might still feel sad, right? Someone who doesn't probably still feels happy. So yeah, I guess if you're not feeling any emotion at all,
if you come out of it feeling apathetic, that's not good.
But feeling good about a session where bad things happen, I don't think is bleed necessarily. That's just having fun.
Right. Well, you can absolutely feel good about something bad happening in a session. Like there are very like
when Jem sacrificed himself at the end of our Scala Rain campaign, right? I didn't feel bad about that because that was a really good fitting ending for him, and you gave me a really epic send off with it as well. Yeah.
You can absolutely have those kinds of moments, and admittedly, those are frequently somewhat designed moments, but listen to your players. If your players are telling you, I didn't come away from that feeling good, they clearly are in need of something. So, and it should be okay for a DM to ask, hey guys, what do you need? What would be helpful to you all right now? And listen to your players when they give you that answer. And players, give your DM that answer. Be real about it. Like, hey, you know what? We need a beach episode. Hey, you know what? We need a fucking win. We need something where we can just feel good about ourselves. Listen to those, and players, give your DM that feedback because it can really make a difference, especially after something brutal happens.
And DMs, be receptive to feedback.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
It's not personal.
No.
I mean, it might be personal, but...
Well, here's the thing, though. If you go to your DM, like let's say you have been having fun, because I think this is the biggest sort of one of the bigger pieces of advice I always have to get when, you know, people like come into a stream. They're like, hey, I have this problem, blah, 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 blah. You know, my first question is always, have you talked to your DM about it? Some of them say yes, and the DM has brushed it off. Some of them say, no, I haven't. And I definitely know that I've seen, you know, examples of people trying to take something to their DM, and the DM, I don't know if they just feel like it is a personal attack on them, or if they take it as like a personal failing or not. But there is some times where it happens and the DM sort of fights back against it, where they're like, well, I don't think that that's happening.
Yeah, that's no good.
And that might stop you from wanting to talk to them. I get that. But here's what that means then, because if you can't talk to your DM about what's making you unhappy in a session, that's not the table or the DM for you. And you need to figure that out sooner rather than later, because bad D&D is not better than no D&D.
I agree with that. It's like a relationship. It's better, like a
yes,
you're better off being single than in an abusive relationship.
Exactly.
Well, and here's the thing, maybe you're like, well, but I don't have any other games. Where else am I supposed to play if I don't have this? I need to at least use the time that you would have been playing in that session to find your next table or your next group. But if you don't leave that group, it's probably not going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, there's no certification that you get to be a DM. Anybody can be a DM, even people who are ill-equipped to handle certain social situations. Yeah. So there are unprofessional DMs. There's probably more unprofessional DMs than there are. When I say professional, I don't mean in the literal sense. I mean in the skill level sense. And so, if you are a DM, be receptive to that feedback. It'll make you a better DM, but don't take it personal, because.
And I get why you do take it personally. I don't want to make it like you're some bad person for taking it personally, because you're not. Because like the players, you're putting yourself out there when you DM. You are putting out your creative vision of a story and a world and what you think is interesting. And sometimes when you are really trying and you have this cool moment in your mind and it does not land the way that you want it to, that is a bad feeling, because you're literally in your mind going, no, it was supposed to be like this. And the players are just sitting there going, yeah, that is not what came across. And that feels bad. And it's a moment of taking the feedback and just going, clearly it didn't land the way I wanted it to. Yeah. What could I have done differently? What did you all take from it, and moving on? And it's hard sometimes. It really is.
She's talking about me right now.
I'm also talking about me because that also happened to me not too long ago. So don't worry.
Yeah. In my
it happens to the best of us.
Experience, I've started to learn not to have any expectations. And instead of trying to plan these cool moments, plan the start of cool moments and just see where they go, and not have an expectation where it's going to go, because you will get disappointed.
See that I definitely learned that early on as well too, and it was less expectations. And I think what the issue that I had that caused me to kind of crash out so bad wasn't that you reacted differently than I expected, because that happens, but more so that I thought that I had set something up in a different enough way from another thing that had just recently been introduced, that they were different. And when your reactions to them were the same, I think that's what hit me, was I felt like I had put enough work into making these be different enough that when you were basically just like, no, y'all are the same person, it was just like, well, fuck me then. Well, all right, here.
We're airing our dirty laundry. Don't mind
we
us.
Sure are. We sure are.
So much about you.
Yeah, this will be Scarlett's last appearance. She
I
tells
sure
us
hope
to get
not.
bed.
We're gonna have fun in the last half. I promise. We're gonna talk about some maybe assholes. Sorry, that needs more context. Like as in, am I the asshole? Like player
we need
story
more
things.
Assholes. We love assholes.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Hey, it's a new year.
Yeah. Happy 2025.
So since Scarlett and I are pros when it comes to handling our blade, we're going to start with Callie here. What is your advice? Just try to boil it down into like perfectly clippable social media content.
60 seconds or less.
What is your advice on how to handle or avoid bleed in a game?
Write for your characters is the number one piece of advice that I can give. Help your character. And if you could write in the first person, I highly advise doing so, because when you are then writing from your character's perspective and helping them process what it is they've been experiencing, now you get to use your brain being very bad at things to your advantage, because now your brain is also processing these things that the character is struggling with.
See, I would have thought that something like that might go in the opposite direction, because now you're like inhabiting that character more often.
I mean, if you write them just wallowing in the misery of it, that probably isn't going to help. But if you write them processing their way through it and helping them get to the other side of it, that will help you get to the other side of it. So that is my best advice.
Is it better to like write afterwards and kind of like use the bleed to channel it, or to write beforehand to maybe help you get into or out of a certain mindset?
I think that's dealer's choice. Some people write really well when they're really emotional. Some people need to be in a more like stable mindset to be able to write. So that's up to you, really.
What about you, Scarlett? What are your best practices or advice to avoid bleed as a player or as a DM?
I would say if things start getting intense, don't be afraid to pop out of character above table to just like, guys, everything's fine, everything's good, y'all good, okay, or have a Discord server up that you guys can, if you're like don't want to interrupt, just check in with each other, reassure each other, and try not to don't take it too seriously.
I think that on the don't take it too seriously, always assume that what's happening isn't intentional. Like if you feel someone's really being an asshole or something, assume that intent isn't there, that they're probably in their character, and the first order of business should always be to talk to them as a player and just be like, hey, are we good? Here's how this is kind of making me feel. I just want to make sure that things aren't, that there's no lingering animosity.
And if you
sort of outside of
are
it.
playing the antagonistic character in a scene, don't be afraid to just be like, hey guys, I'm good. My character is being this way. I'm good though. So I don't want you to think that I'm mad at you. I'm not at all.
My suggestion is going to be something that I've been using a lot more recently. And if you are someone who feels like you get stuck in your character a lot, that you experience a lot of bleed, I think that you should practice using third person more in your sessions. Practice removing yourself from the character, and instead of playing in ways like, first of all, I think everyone should use third person more to tell the other players how your character is feeling, especially if you're focusing on like doing narrative storytelling. It's important that all players know what the other characters are feeling. A great example of how this was used in one of our games is we had a character who is very sort of chaos gremlin, right? They cause a lot of things to happen, which caused a lot of grief for the other characters. And I think it would be very easy for people to then be like, all right, we're having an intervention. We're going to round them up and berate them for how you need to do better. But our players knew that character was feeling bad because they didn't do these things to cause chaos. They didn't want to make things hard for everyone else. So because the other players knew this, it was more of an intervention of like, hey, we're here for you. You just need to talk to us more. You don't have to impress us. You don't have to put yourself in these situations where everything's on you. Lean on us more. When you know what the other characters are feeling, or when the other characters know what you're feeling, when other players know what your characters are feeling, it then gives you as a player the chance to act in a way that helps to, or react in a way that helps to further that story. And I think that when you pull yourself back and you narrate in third person, it helps to sort of separate you from the character a little bit more, and for you to sort of maybe see things without the rage tinted glasses or the love tinted glasses or whatever emotion it is that your character happens to be feeling that day. Well, all right. That I honestly didn't know what to expect from this episode. Because talking about something like bleed, that's like a heavy
topic.
It's a very heavy topic. But I'm hoping that people can walk away having learned something from this.
It's okay. We went with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
We did. Now,
I'm sorry, that wasn't nice.
I do want Scarlett to have enjoyed her time here. So I'm glad that we've come up with this new sort of segment to end shows on, to have a little bit more fun here. And that is reading some Am I the Asshole stories from the perspective of people's characters, not the players themselves. So We're going to start here with, I guess we don't have a name, but am I the asshole for not telling my twin brother I've been with his wife behind his back, and after she died, he went to seek help from the ultimate demon? I, 25 female, have a twin brother, 25 male, Starborn, not his real name, and we've always been close. Some years ago, I happened to introduce him to Gemstone, female. They quickly started dating, which was awkward because I also had feelings for her. At some point, I had admitted my feelings to Gemstone, and apparently she also liked me too. We had an on and off affair for a few years while she openly dated my brother. Every time I'd come to my senses and break it off, I'd come back to her again. Eventually, she permanently cut off the affair when my brother proposed to her. I decided I didn't want to cause issues for the happy couple as she obviously picked him, so I stayed quiet. Unfortunately, not too long after they were wed, Gemstone passed away for some unusual illness. I was, of course, heartbroken, but I still didn't say anything as Starborn was so lost in grief that I wanted to help him. Starborn left home to seek out something to help with his grief, but I just found out recently that his plan is to ask the greatest demon ever to live, and this will probably cause a world apocalypse. I've tried to reach out to him, but he just refuses to listen to reason. I'm starting to wonder if withholding my affair with his wife could be causing more harm than good. Am I the asshole?
I think Gemstone's the asshole, actually.
For what part?
For play, she's the cheater.
Demon both sides.
Oh, sorry. I
not
yeah,
Starborn.
Yes,
Gemstone's the asshole.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Gemstone's absolutely an asshole here.
I feel very biased because I DM'd for this character.
You got to remove yourself.
I got to remove myself from it. I'm going to say you're the asshole, absolutely, but you're not the only one. Gemstone is absolutely also an asshole. You two were both super in the wrong on this one.
Why would you, if you have feelings for her, why would you have set her up with your brother?
I don't believe that it was like she set him up, that like they all went to school together and they met.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna say, when I heard the title, my brain immediately went to identical twins. So I thought they were like, I was sleeping with my brother's wife pretending to be my brother. That's where I thought this was going to go.
Definitely would have been the asshole then. Yep.
Yeah, I think both Ryder and Gemstone are assholes in this one.
Well, and then apparently at the end, the brother wanted to go to the greatest demon to ever live to bring her back. Look, brother
also
wanted to be
an idea on his part.
Brother wanted to be an asshole too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I say,
I can tell
burn
you,
it all to the ground. Admit that to the affair, but also you're an asshole.
Yeah.
I'll tell you as the DM, it didn't go well because indeed the greatest demon to ever live resurrected through him and started a genocide. So yeah, it was bad.
All right. Pretty good. We have a pretty hard consensus on that one then.
Yeah.
Fucking Gemstone.
There's not a lot of innocence in this.
For our second one, am I the asshole? This comes from Sir Dorian Michael Archibald Fartson. It's an unfortunate last name.
That's a shame.
My party has poor manners and insists on sneaking into manors and corridors when good manners insist upon properly announcing yourself upon arrival. As a noble, I insist on knocking on each door and announcing myself upon our arrival to be polite. But my party says that I am being an asshole because I am ruining their stealth opportunities and they cannot use the surprise round mechanics because I follow proper decorum. Am I the asshole?
Wait, let me get this straight. They're going and knocking on doors to announce
whenever they come to a door
that they're there.
Right. Whenever they're going someplace that I guess they're not supposed to be or that they're not, expected to be, they knock on the door and announce that they're arrived.
And properly introduce themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the rogues are upset that they can't sneak in, steal stuff, and get a surprise round.
Mm-hmm,
well, that just sounds like a skill issue on the rogues. That sounds like that could be a really good diversion. The rich a-hole coming to knock on all the doors.
That's true. That's true.
His presence.
I would say that this maybe depends. All right. I think that OP is probably right, that it is rude to just show up to places unannounced, walking without knocking. So like I get that you're following proper decorum. So what I would say that you should probably consider is consider why you're going to a place, right? Let's say you're going to another noble's manor, and this noble is known to be a bit of a dick themselves, right? Maybe they're rude to their staff. Maybe they're wanted for questioning in some possible murders and stuff like that. If you're going to an asshole's place, then I think you have to ask, have they warranted or do they deserve to be treated with proper respect in manners? Because if they don't, then maybe let the rogue go in there and do their thing. But if they otherwise haven't shown any disrespect to you or anyone else that you're aware of, I think that being respectful back is probably fine.
I'm going to say you're not the asshole, but you are a hypocrite. Don't come off talking to me like you want to be a proper noble. A proper noble does not hang around lowlifes and ruffians and scoundrels that sneak into people's houses and abuse surprise round mechanics, every DM's worst nightmare.
So get rid of the rogue.
If you're going to try and sell me that you're a proper noble, you should have a proper entourage, and that does not include the scum of the city.
Dang. So overall, we're leaning towards not the asshole.
Yeah, I don't think you're an asshole.
I think OP is asshole for other reasons, but that's not the reason.
Yeah.
but following decorum and having manners isn't it. All right. Well, there you go, Sir Dorian. You are not the asshole in this regard, but probably in other regards.
Yeah, the problem is you are a noble, which means that you are part of the 1%, and we hate
who
you.
needs
So
to
sorry.
themselves. That's kind of
Yep. Sorry, Dorian. Well, thank you, Scarlett. That wraps up our show here today. We'd love it if you would take a moment to let everybody know where they can find you. If you have any sort of projects or anything you'd like to, promo or shout out, please do.
You can find me on Twitch, Scarlett64. I do actual plays, especially on Sundays. That's our Out of the Abyss sequel, Beyond the Abyss, or Buta, as we love to call it.
Buta.
Uta was Out of the Abyss, and Buta is the sequel. I'm also on TikTok until it disappears in a week or so, but I'm also on Instagram and YouTube as Scarlett64. I do a lot of art projects. I created the Desert Dragons, which is a project I've been doing.
Are so cute. And by the way, Scarlett64, but the A is an X.
Yes.
Ooh, that makes it cool.
Yeah. I picked that because when I tried to play a video game, the Scarlet with an A was taken. So I got a little spicy there and it just kind of stuck. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And thank you guys so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. And as we always do with our guests as well, we have a bunch of content that we make. We do homebrew magic items on our streams. We have 800 magic items and counting over at our Patreon, which we also put out on Threads and Tumblr. So check us out there. By the time this comes out, our new subclass, the Path of the Burning Heart Barbarian, should be out as well. That is our 11th.
Have you ever wanted to be Toph? Because now you can be Toph.
That is our 11th subclass that we've put out. And if you would like access to all of our stuff, Scarlett, as one of our creator friends now, it is yours to do with as you would like. So we would love to send you that link for you to potentially check some of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone, until next time, thank you so much for listening on the podcast or watching on the VOD. I'm so bad at these. You think I would come up with like a proper... Lloyd, just cut it here. It's fine.
See you later, alligator.
Just exit. Bye-bye. The Cloaks and Capes podcast is created by the support of its listeners and generous Patreon donors. Special thanks to our mythmakers and legends, Heartslot, Dolvik, Celtic Crow, Darkflux, Gamergal, Strix River, Tater Thoughts, and Capelli. Views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts. Editing and production by Aaron Pillen and music provided by Aidan Hageland. If you want to support the Cloaks and Capes podcast, check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/Cloaks and Capes. And check us out on Threads and Instagram at Cloaks and Capes TTRPG.
Grab timestamps and come up with a bunch of clips.
Lloyd.
We can send you that link. So if you want to use those clips.